In this lecture, we'll take a more in-depth look at market segmentation, targeting, and positioning. More specifically, we'll look at the steps involved in these three processes, and we'll look at some of the basis for segmenting, how companies actually select segments for targeting, and how companies develop positioning. Let's start with an example. Procter & Gamble. This is one of the world's leading consumer packaged goods companies, and just about every household has some P&G product available. Now, if you look at the laundry detergent business, they've got, in fact, 7 different brands, and you wonder, well, why so many brands? Why do they offer these range of products? And the answer really is that different customers want different mixes of benefits. They want different types of products. Some want strong, some want not so strong. Some want to wash their clothes in color, wash their color separately from their whites. Others want to do it in one load. Some want cold temperatures, others want hot temperatures. Some have delicates, some have baby clothes, all different needs, and therefore they need different brands of detergents. And so segmenting the market allows Procter & Gamble to do this, and so it allows them to develop these particular products and target and position for the products to these exact needs that consumers have. So the steps are, first of all, market segmentation. This is where we'll identify bases for segmenting the market. In other words, figuring out how we want to divide it up, and then developing profiles of the segments. Then we move into targeting, where here we're going to develop measures of segment attractiveness and then choose the segments that we're interested in. And then finally positioning, where we're going to sort of position the statement, create an image for that particular product for the target market that we're interested in. So let's begin to look at these steps individually. Before we do that, with segmentation, there's sort of various degrees or levels of segmentation that you can do. Mass marketing is where there's no segmentation. You're taking one product to everybody. And many years ago, when companies like Procter & Gamble only had Tide, that was mass marketing. Only one laundry detergent for everybody, and hopefully it fit everyone's needs. Segmenting is sort of dividing the market up, as we said earlier, into distinct segments. And you can go a little more sort of refined in that you could go to what's called niche marketing, where you can divide the segments up into smaller pieces, or even something called micro-marketing, where you can divide the segments up even smaller. Now, the definitions really depend on the industry. What may be segmenting in one industry is niche marketing in another. The point is that there are various degrees of segmenting. Some companies decide that they use fairly large segments. Other companies will use many small different segments. So let's think of segmentation as sort of a pie, and we're going to up the pie. So the diagram I have here uses some yellow dots to represent consumers, and it's a pretty simplistic way of looking at things, but it works. And so we're going to divide this market up based on various needs. And one way we might do that is by looking at, for example, income. And so on the diagram on the lower left, we've divided the market into sort of high income and low income. But we could also divide the market up based on age. So we might have consumers between 19 and 35, and those between 36 and 49, and those from 50 older. And then, excuse me, on the last diagram on the right-hand side, you'll see dividing the market by both age and income. And so each time you add a variable, you're dividing the market up into a smaller piece. You're getting sort of smaller pieces of the pie. And that's this process of segmenting the market, figuring out how you're going to cut it up, and then looking at the segments that result. So what can we use? What variables can we use to the market? Well, one of the most common is geographic. Okay, you can look at consumers in large cities versus small, urban, rural, those in Eastern Canada versus those in Western Canada. And very often, consumers in different parts of the country or different areas have very different needs. Those in the Maritimes, for example, prefer a sweeter tasting soft drink, and so Pepsi makes a different formula for the East Coast than it does for the rest of Canada. You can also use the demographic variables, age, gender, stage in the family life cycle. Income, occupation, education, ethnic origin, religion are all ways of dividing the market up according to demographic variables. We can use psychographic variables, your personality or your lifestyle, the interests that you have, and also behavioral. Now, behavioral means not so much how you behave, but how you behave towards the product. For example, we talk about user status, whether you're a heavy user or a light user. Typically with most companies, about 80% of the product is purchased by 20% of the market. So do we want to divide the market up that way? And maybe we've got a marketing mix tailored for our heavy users, the ones that use most of the product, and a different marketing mix for those that only use it occasionally. So that's one way of using a behavioral variable. Now let's turn to another example, this time looking at Gatorade and how they might divide up their market. First of all, they use a psychographic variable where they divide consumers up based on their approach towards exercise and sport. Sort of how intense they are as a sports-minded person. And they have three segments, three ways of dividing it up. They have, first of all, the intense competitor, those that spend a lot of time involved in sports, that are very serious, that train very heavily. For these consumers, they develop the powder Gatorade product because these people are mixing it up and using a fair amount of it. We then have the committed exerciser, those that are fairly serious about their exercises. And for them, because they are still large volume drinkers, Gatorade provides them with large bottles of the product. They're not so serious that they want to mix it up themselves, but they still consume a large amount of product. And then they have the socializer segment, those that like to go to clubs and work out and be seen. They're a little more interested in taste. They buy smaller quantities because they don't have the need for such large quantities of Gatorade. And so for them, there's products in smaller bottles with different taste profiles. With the intense competitors and committed exercisers, Gatorade only offers a couple flavors, but for them the flavor is not important. It's the product benefits of getting fast fluid replacement. But we can also look at Gatorade from some behavioral aspects or variables. For example, the occasion for use. Those that use it during exercise versus those that are using it on a social occasion, like standing outside a convenience store on a hot day, having a Gatorade product. The rate of use, the 80-20 rule, those that are heavy users versus light users. Loyalty level is quite common. You might do a marketing mix for those that are committed to buy your product only versus those that occasionally buy your product and buy your competitor's product as well. Or the benefits, taste versus the quick fluid replacement. And in fact, what Gatorade does is they use sort of a combination of these variables. So they might have one segment where there are heavy users that are concerned about the restoring of fluids quickly and are using it mostly during exercise. And then we might have a social user that's concerned about taste, but they could also be very loyal to Gatorade. So you can sort of mix and match and look at these various segments and start to see sort of where your consumers are and if they do have different needs as you divide up the marketplace. So when you do this and you look at these segments, there are some general about what the segment should end up or should be. They should be measurable, and that is you should be able to get an estimate of how big they are. They should be accessible. You should be able to reach them and serve them and deliver a marketing mix to that particular group. They should be substantial enough that you're going to generate some revenue because you're going to be spending some money to go after that segment. They should be differentiable. In other words, they should be responding different to the marketing mix than other segments. If they respond the same, then you might as well combine them together. And they should be actionable. In other words, we should be able to design some programs to go after that specific group.